So you want to start a podcast, but you have no idea where the podcast should actually be hosted. Where do I even start? I know I should record episodes, but then where do those episodes go after they've been edited, and how do we get them out to the internets? Well, in this video, I'm going to break down exactly what you need to know about podcast hosting and your podcast. Now, in order to have your podcast episode uploaded to the internet, it needs to be done through a podcast hosting account. When I say the internet, that means, well, number one, it's uploaded to your podcast hosting account, and then your podcast hosting account then talks to Apple Podcasts and Spotify and the other distribution platforms out there. But you can't do any of those things unless you've uploaded your podcast episode to your podcast hosting account. Next, I want to go over exactly what your podcast hosting options are, because there are several. So I'm going to talk about 3 different podcast hosting options right now. The first one you're going to be familiar with. It's owned by a company called Spotify. It used to be called Anchor.fm. It's now been under one big umbrella labeled Spotify for Podcasters, which is not only the podcast hosting platform, but also all the tools and resources available that Spotify provides for podcasters. So this Spotify for Podcasters hosting solution is absolutely free. They've got an app you can download on your phone. You can literally record an episode, edit an episode, upload an episode, market an episode. Gives you a small podcast website. You can upload it to Apple Podcasts and also to Spotify and a few other distribution platforms out there. All podcast hosting accounts operate the same way. You upload files, the files live there. Each podcast hosting account lives on what's called an RSS feed. That stands for really simple syndication. What this does is, once you upload your episode to your podcast hosting account, that episode is added to your RSS feed. That RSS feed will be set up with Apple and Spotify for distribution. So the only thing you have to do when you upload a podcast episode to your podcast hosting account is just that. Upload the episode. Once the distribution is set up, then it's already plug and play. Upload to one place and goes to multiple locations. So that's the free option, and actually how your podcast hosting account then talks to Apple and to Spotify and the other distribution platforms out there. Now, you do need to set up distribution, and in order to do that, you need to have at least one file uploaded to your podcast hosting account, so there's at least one file on the RSS feed when you go submit it to Apple and to Spotify. There's other videos on the channel here that show you exactly what you need to do to submit your RSS feed to Apple Podcasts and Spotify and the other directories available for your podcast to be distributed to. But for purposes of this video, I just want you to understand what the options are. I'm giving you some additional information so you understand how podcast hosting accounts work. But this video specifically is, hey, what are my podcast hosting options? Well, this is the free one. A lot of people use, I still call it Anchor. I'm getting used to calling it the new name, Spotify for Podcasters, which is an entire mouthful. But it is free, and a lot of beginner podcasters start there. Find out if you got an idea that actually is going to stick. Find out if you actually want to do this work or not. And then decide whether or not you want to upgrade to a separate podcast hosting account, which, by the way, you don't need to do. They all offer the same type of functionality, unless you're some big giant data nerd that has to know the numbers and logistics, and you want to know all these things. Maybe you've got a large brand you're going to get some good traction on. Maybe you want some more in-depth analytics with your hosting account. But most when just getting started, free is a great price. You can get started with it today. So the podcast hosting service that I recommend that we actually use here at the Podcast Launch Lab for not only all of my shows, but also all of the shows that we get to launch for our clients here, is Simplecast. Simplecast.com. I moved over to them like 3 or 4 years ago. $15 a month. Their websites look decent, and it's easy to navigate around. It's very simple, pun intended. Simplecast.com allows you to upload your file, create micro content too after each episode has been uploaded on there. It gives you great looking websites, very basic, simple, easy to use and navigate. So I recommend Simplecast.com. There'll be a link below to check Simplecast out. In addition to that, there are other platforms available. Other popular platforms out there are Buzzsprout and Libsyn. The challenge I found with these platforms is they're great and all. Libsyn's user interface, their UI is extremely difficult to navigate around. Of course, they were the first ones on the block, but you're also paying to play there based on how much you're uploading, based on how much space you need when you're uploading your episodes and how long your episodes are and files, etc. So they start you at a sliding scale. I think it's like $10 a month, and then the more space you need, it goes to, another $2, another $3, another $5. Don't understand that whole sliding scale deal, because Simplecast, I think up to 20,000 downloads a month is $15 a month. Trying to find the disconnect there. Anyway, I don't like the UI in Libsyn. A lot of people do, so I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying I prefer utilizing Simplecast because, well, it's simple. And the other one out there that's very popular, great team behind it, Buzzsprout. And I do hear a lot of great things about Buzzsprout too. Again, they're pay to play. They have a free plan, and then you can upgrade as you go, depending on how much space that you need. So I hope that clears up exactly what you need to do pertaining to podcast hosting. I'm not telling you to go with one provider or not. Listen, Spotify's free. Great price. Simplecast is $15, and there are several other options out there. The important part is you just pick one and make sure that you stick with it. No, this is my podcast hosting account. This is where I'm going to upload new episodes to, and this is the platform that I've chosen. Now, what if I choose a platform, Sebastian, and then we upload 50 episodes and decide, well, we don't like this platform anymore, we want to move away? You can 100% do that. You can migrate to another podcast hosting platform with absolute ease. However, you will lose any analytics from the previous podcast hosting account. Not really a big deal. Just keep those numbers in mind when you open up the new account. Tack them on to the new stats that you'll be getting. Problem solved. Well, I hope you're leaving this video knowing at least one or two things that you did not know about podcast hosting and where your podcast episodes should live. Any questions about this video or any videos on the channel, please comment below. I do respond to each and every one of you lovely people. Until next time.